It's time for Screen Junkies Movie Fights.
What in the world? You guys, it's Movie Fights. We're here, we're doing it. Hashtag Movie Fights Live. And I gotta say hi to Owl Nation. Percival's in the house. Hoot, hoot. We are kicking off...
Already down.
We're kicking off June Movie Fights. We got the Dan Murrell Invitational, I almost got him, I should have had him tournament. And it's all culminating on a big July 4th. Not just America's birthday, but it's going to be a last fighter standing, which, just as big in context. And so today, we got, spoiler alert, I just said the Dan Murrell Invitation. Dan Murrell's at the table. Let's see who else is at the table, you guys. Yes, it is the All Fact Checkers edition. So when many people have sat in that chair, and when Dan is not taking us to the fact zone, and we have some of the finest minds that have graced that chair with us right now today. First up, this fella. He wears the mortarboard and the gown because he drinks and he knows things. That's Game of Thrones TV fights. Lon Harris, the professor. What's going on, Lon?
Just happy to be back on Movie Fight. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've movie fought. I've got to shake the cobwebs off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we just had to check with the doctors and everything because you received a concussion and a TKO. Standing 8 count in your last. No, I'm just. You won your last.
I think I did.
Yeah. No, you've done some damage on your.
I was confused. I was like, did I do really poorly on Movie Fights and I blocked it out of my memory?
No, I was just talking crap as per usual.
Yeah. Go for it, man.
Lon, great to have you here in this seat. But you got some formidable foes. She's been making some no standing 8 counts for her. She's been making noise. I will remind you, she has the only clean sweep in Movie Fights history.
That's not true.
A 4-0 shutout? Has there been a 4-0 shutout?
I think perhaps Greg Alba has also done it.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
But it's
that makes way more sense.
It's a rare.
Very rare. Okay, maybe one of 2 in history. And she's the voice of the people. Danielle Radford.
Thank you. And actually, I have to fact check.
Oh, no.
I have never sat in the fact check seat before. I've always been the voice of the people. So I wanted to fact check that right now so that I officially count as a fact checker.
Yeah. Boom! Done it under the wire. Just under the wire.
Got it.
Correct is the best kind of correct.
Got it. And this man needs no introduction, but we'll give him one anyway. He is the reigning Movie Fights champion. You know him from all over Screen Junkies. And when it comes to just movie contests and trivia things, he's pretty good at them. He also just destroys it in the Schmodown. Dan the Man Murrell. What's going on, brother?
Hal? Did you? It looks like the set of Game of Thrones around here. Did you and Lon go to Starbucks together?
Well, yeah, we actually did.
We actually did.
And those are intentionally on the table.
We weren't invited, but that's fine.
Right, I see.
Next time.
I can't bribe the judge here. We gotta go off-site.
Yes, we do look like Daenerys with our cup of coffee. Dan, good luck to all of you.
Thank you.
And a very special treat, weighing in on the questions and the facts along with myself. Wow, it is the original fact checkers from TV Fights.
Whoa.
Look at Ken Knapsack and Billy Biz together again. 2 great tastes.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Happy to be here. Hi, Roxy. Hey, Ken. Hey, Hal.
It's like Encarta and Wikipedia together on the couch at the same time.
It's like Ask Jeeves and anything you use now in the future.
Ken, did you do anything special to get ready for this fact checking? Did you crack your knuckles? Did you do some finger stretches?
I'll tell you what I did, Hal. I stole some candy from the Screen Junkies break room.
Ooh, yeah, you
did. Ooh, what a sweet crime that is. Billy Biz, you are the voice of the people. What's going on, brother? You want to tell us how that works?
I'd love to, Hal. You can vote in the polls. They're there during the fights, Danielle.
Okay, so just give me my one shot. Okay, so the way that the votes work is that there are a lot of great polls that happen online. We encourage you to use those, but the only poll that counts for this match is the poll that happens on YouTube. And so the way that will work is that in case of a tie or in case no one can figure anything out, we will turn to you, and then your vote will count towards the eventual winner. Do you want me to do dank memes? What do we need?
I would love dank memes. I'd also love refinancing mortgage tips if you could help me there too. Please send it along.
All right, congrats to homeowner Billy Business. Danielle, thank you for the assist. You know what? Let's do some movie fighting. JTE, drop that sick-ass package.
Prepare to die. Ladies and gentlemen. No.
It's main event time.
Finish him!
All right, thank you, Thor. JTE, best package in the biz. So, in honor of X-Men Dark Phoenix, let's honor that movie.
That's really.
Let's honor
An
it.
observation.
20% on Rotten Tomatoes. But because there's an X-Men movie coming out,
There it is.
we ask, who gives the best performance in any single X-Men movie, in any X movie? Wow. There it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
All right. Man, a lot of good performances across those films. And let's start with player number one, Lon.
That's me. So I went a little outside the box. I know that the temptation with a question like this is to think about the people who've been in a bunch of these movies. Sort of we've gotten to know their characters over a bunch of time. But I was thinking, who gives a great one-off performance? And I really think the best, maybe ever, in any of these movies, Brian Cox as William Stryker in X2, X-Men United. He only has one movie to come in and sort of create this whole character for us, and he does such a compelling job that William Stryker actually became a major character throughout this whole franchise. He's played by 3 actors in different X-Men movies, and I think almost all of that is because Cox is so memorable in this movie. He's the guy who created Wolverine. He's the guy that created Magneto's prison. He's sort of this driving force behind anti-mutanism throughout the entire franchise. It's a very compelling performance, and it's complicated. It's layered, too. We find out in that movie that Stryker hates mutants because his own son, Jason, is a powerful mutant who wasn't in control of his powers, who couldn't be helped by Professor Xavier, and who ended up killing his own mother, and that's driven Stryker's hatred of mutants, which sort of drives everything else he does. That's a really interesting backstory. I think the fact that he is, though he's incredibly sort of evil in the movie, he's doing all of these really devious things, and we sort of blame him for Wolverine's trauma. In the same way, he's giving us this sort of compelling, three-dimensional, believable guy. And I mean, Brian Cox, no matter how silly the material is, he sort of dives in and always gives it his sort of 100%, and it's a really good performance. So I'm going with Brian Cox as William Stryker.
Okay, Lon strikes first with William Stryker, Brian Cox. Danielle.
So I am going with, I was going to do that thing where you like set it up, and I'm not doing that. So I'm going with Michael Fassbender from Days of Future Past. He, other than obviously playing young, hot Magneto, he also... And performances, sometimes we boil them down to speeches, and I know that he gives several very good ones in this movie. He has that fantastic speech on the plane where he's accusing Charles of saying that, he abandoned all of them. He has that great speech about humanity, fearing that which is different when he is doing his big last stand at the end of the movie. But it's not just these speeches. And I am trying to, because you're right, we're talking about specific movies, so I'm not going to be drawing from anything else. But in this movie specifically, I feel like he has several great moments where Magneto really gets to shine and Michael Fassbender gets to show that he is a good actor and he is more than hot Magneto, although he is also hot Magneto.
All right, Danielle coming in hot with young hot Magneto. Dan.
My choice is from the film Logan, but it is not Hugh Jackman. Sorry. But not sorry, because this is actually my favorite performance in the movie, and it is Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart as Professor Xavier in Logan, I think, is easily the best performance in any X-Men branded movie. You can give me another performance as we were about to do, and I will defend this one. And it's mainly because first of all, it gives us a shade of that character that we see in no other place in any other film and anywhere else in this franchise. It allows Patrick Stewart to explore parts of Charles Xavier that he has not been able to in other films. And really, it drives home, so much of the story is about Wolverine and his character, but really Charles is given a lot of the way that the weight of the world is on his shoulders, and it's the death of a dream. Really, for so much is here's this person who prides himself. His power was his mind, and what is the worst thing you can imagine for someone whose literal superpower is their mind? It's losing it. It's losing that mind, and not only are you losing it, you're hurting other people in the process. It is such a tragic performance, but also it has this sliver of hope, and that's really what that movie is driven by. And the whole story of Logan is kicked off by the fact that Xavier finds in this mutant who's not supposed to exist this spark of this dream that he had, and it really propels the movie forward into what happens. So much more to say about it, which we will talk about, but Patrick Stewart in Logan, I think, gives the best performance in any X-Men film.
There you go. Let's fight it out.
Gentlemen?
Everybody wants to start. All right.
Why are we so polite?
Brian Cox is a great villain. He is a really good villain in X-Men 2, but I think that if you're going through the whole franchise, if I'm picking out one specific and individual performance, I just don't think comparatively he's able to stand up to the even other villain performances perhaps in this series. I think that he's a very strong villain. He's a very good actor. They got him for a reason. But the Stryker character, I don't think came back off the strength of his great performance.
Nope.
It's because he was established as the guy that made Wolverine, and you went back in time and showed Wolverine being made. So you have to have Stryker there because you've established that
you definitely don't have to. You could have replaced him with a million other characters. It's 30, 40 years in advance. You could just have him like he was working at a different part of the military.
No,
if it wasn't a strong, memorable character.
I mean, the whole Stryker's whole thing and his whole pull in that movie is he's the whole reason that Wolverine does what he does in X-Men 2 is because Stryker's the guy saying like, you don't know what you are, but I do because I was there and I made you what you are. So you have to have Stryker there because you've established that he was there.
Well, Stryker's already a major character in the comics. It's not just that he's a major character. Like, it's not just X2.
He's really not this kind of character in the comics, though. They changed it radically for the films, largely based, again, on the setup of X2 and the power of this Brian Cox performance. And you're quoting the lines of dialogue directly from X2. Like, you were always an animal. I just gave you claws. Like, it's this incredibly sort of deep, thoughtful performance. And I mean, the fact that Magneto is not true, like he's the villain, but he's not really a villain. He's sort of back and forth. He's one of the protagonists of this franchise. I think you need a guy like Stryker to balance it out. You need a very strong, compelling villain who comes through a bunch of the movies, and it's all rooted in that Cox performance from Part 2.
I think it's all rooted necessarily like in the writing, and unfortunately I do think it's a great performance. I think that he makes a fantastic villain. I think it gets lost in the shuffle. I have to say X2 is one of my favorites. It might be my favorite in this franchise. I had to look up Brian Cox because you had not put that he was Stryker.
You love the movie, but
because it just gets lost in the shuffle. There's so many other.
I don't know. It's a great performance.
It's a great performance.
I don't understand what you're saying.
No, I'm saying it's a great performance, but ultimately it is not the best one in this franchise. Because if it was, it would be something that would stick with me more. I can't
respond to I didn't remember who Brian Cox was, but all right. I mean, I think the thing I would say is like both of your arguments I feel like are going off of the fact that, just like I said in my opening, that we've seen these guys in a lot of other movies, and that's what gives this final one or this other one the power. Like all your arguments are like, his superpower is his mind, and we've never seen this side of him before. And it's like, that performance becomes more meaningful when you think back on all the other movies that you've seen with Patrick Stewart. But Brian Cox didn't have that to draw on.
You don't need that. You don't need to draw on the other. That's the thing, is like Patrick Stewart sells the tragedy of the situation because Logan doesn't even tell you. It doesn't even fully tell you exactly what happened. You see it through that scene it's like a heartbreaking scene. The heartbreaking scene where he's talking to Logan and he says like, this is one of the best nights I've had in my life, but I don't deserve it. And the grief that he has, you see this broken man. The tragedy that he brings to that part, like I'm not even talking inside the franchise. Look at that performance as a whole, and just this man who's fighting himself at the same time as he's fighting the world around him. Like not only is his mind battling against him, the world is coming to get him, and the weight that he gives the weight that you feel on this character's shoulders. Like Brian Cox is a great villain performance in an X-Men movie. But Patrick Stewart as Xavier in Logan, that's just it's not limited to the X-Men. The idea of growing old and your body turning against you, the idea of being a burden on other people and the horror with that. He plays all of that so beautifully. It's not one note. It's it's subdued. It's humorous when it needs to be. The shades that he gives that character. And it's not just, oh, I feel bad for Professor X because I know who he is. No, it's I feel bad for this person.
And I'm glad you touched on the humor because I love that performance. I think it's fantastic. I do think at times the humor is a little over the top and it takes me out of it. And you want to talk about someone, this is Magneto really. He's not necessarily relishing in what he has to do. He is a heartbroken person. He feels like he has been abandoned by all of the people who were supposed to be helping him to protect his people. And that is another, you talk about getting old and dealing with age. This is someone who is he has seen what has happened. He is dealing for the survival of his people. And that's where these fantastic speeches, and he's able to do all of that because of the strength of how Michael Fassbender is acting in those. He is restrained when he needs to be restrained. He's over the top when he needs to really pull it out and be villainous and say to the world, we're going to show you that, yeah, you should fear us. We are scary. He can pull that out and go as big and as large with that as he needs to, or he can be on a plane where literally he's bringing everything in, including the plane, and make it very personal between him and Charles Xavier. And yeah, a lot of that is the writing because it's good writing on that movie, but a lot of that is, the difference between how Michael Fassbender can either push it out or can bring it in depending on what needs to happen.
Okay, Uncanny X-Men, let's shift gears and go to our final thoughts. Lon, you can continue what you're saying.
I was just
roll into final
to
thoughts.
respond to that. I actually think that Fassbender's a great actor. He's a little subdued in all three of those movies. I feel like those performances as Magneto are all a little bit flat. They're all a little subdued. He never gets to where Ian McKellen took the character. They're supposed to be playing the same guy at different points of their life, but McKellen has this very broad, very theatrical take on Magneto, and we never really see Fassbender get there. It's always this very kind of he's a raging fire, but under the surface, he's very subdued on the surface. And even that big speech, his big moment at the end of Future Past, where he's on TV, he's got all the cameras on him. This is I'm going to announce mutants to the world, and we all got to unite. Even that speech, which should be his big moment, it's also kind of subdued. So it's a little bit of a low key sort of take on Magneto. As for all the Logan Professor X stuff, I agree. It's a good performance as a sort of person who's experiencing sort of senility, dementia at the end of their life. We've seen a lot of great actors take that kind of role on. I think it's almost kind of at opposite ends what you're saying. The power of that performance, I think, is the fact that he is losing his grip. He's losing his mind. So the idea that the weight of all this stuff is on his shoulders, well, it sort of is and it isn't. He's not as aware of the world around him. It's sort of his coming apart and his sort of the forgetting of who Charles Xavier was. That, to me, is the real power of that performance. But it's also kind of a side feature in that movie. I really think it's more of Hugh Jackman's film. So those are my final thoughts.
Thank you, Lon. Danielle.
You talk about how restrained he is, but I think that what it is showing is that he is in control because that is his ability to show that he still cares about Charles, he still cares about the other mutants around him, and he wants to both show the world that I can do all of this powerful stuff and I don't have to do it while cackling maniacally. I can do it while being very in control of my words and showing you through my power who I am. And it's also a way for Fassbender to communicate that he does still care about Charles and that he does still care in that way. Patrick Stewart's performance in that is amazing. Some of the humor takes me out of it. Times where he cursed, I feel like those are the ones that wind up being the things that people remember the most, which is a shame because it's a great performance. But at a few points, he gets a little too hammy. I feel like and Brian Cox again, fantastic performance, really well done, but it definitely doesn't rise to Patrick Stewart, and it certainly doesn't rise to Michael Fassbender.
Thank you, Danielle. Dan?
Like I said, Brian Cox, a very strong villain performance, but I just don't think it rises, as Danielle said, to the weight of not just from a performance level, from a character level, to the significance and what these other two represent in context of the series and in context of their own movies. There are a lot of great performances. Alan Cumming is great in X-Men too. Ian McKellen, as always, is great. I think his is a good performance in a movie full of good performances. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just what makes that the one that's the best out of all of them. Michael Fassbender, I think, I like him as Magneto, but again, why this performance in Days of Future Past specifically? What does he bring to that movie specifically? all of the things that you said about his performance as Magneto, I agree, but you could have said that about his performance as Magneto in X-Men First Class, even his performance as Magneto in X-Men Apocalypse, when he really does lose everything. I think he's good in all of the movies. That specific performance doesn't stand out to me just because he has several ones. The reason that I pick Patrick Stewart out of all of the performances is one that is singular to that movie. It both brings closure to that character of Xavier for longtime fans. For people that just went to see it because it's the R-rated Wolverine movie, he's accessible because he does bring those elements of aging and growing old. You don't need to know the entire history of that character to understand where he's coming from. The idea that he's not as aware of the world, that's how his character starts, because he has to be drugged, because he has to be doped up, but to dull his senses. But as the movie goes on, he stops taking his medicines. And that's what drives the plot, is that he becomes more aware of the world. He realizes that not all hope is lost. That's what gives that performance depth and layer, and that's ultimately the tragic thing, is that he's cut down as this hope is brought back to the world. I think that's just the evolution of his character. The cursing, the humor, I mean, again, I think that's what makes it so realistic, which is that, that is part of growing older, is you lose your filter. You start cursing maybe a little bit more than you did when you were younger. You maybe are a little bit more inappropriately humorous in times where it doesn't call for it. That's part of the aging process. That's just, again, another layer to that character. I think it goes beyond just, this is a great character in the franchise. This is a great performance. It's so multi-level. He's given so much to do, and I think it stands out more so than any other one in any other movie. I think it's a fantastic performance, not just a great character.
All right, time. There you go. 3 very different choices here. Ken, take us to the fact zone.
Well, I think a lot of the facts were on the up and up. Just looking on Twitter there, Carly Ann says, and puts a picture of Wolverine from Logan. It's very brave of Dan when talking about Logan and not choosing Logan, but we'll see if that came out. Chewbacca Defense, my old friend from the TV Fights Day, says, wait, I'm changing my answer. It's Eric LaSalle from Logan. As far as facts...
I'll take that.
Danielle, Brian Cox was born in Dundee, UK in 1946. He's listed as 5 feet 9 inches tall. 2001, nominated for a Primetime Emmy for his guest appearance on Frasier. Lon's Brian Cox impressions, rated 92% accurate on Rotten Impressions meter, and was played by Danny Houston and Josh Hellman. Every other fact put out there was pretty darn good.
All right, Ken, thank you for that mix of facts, thoughts, tweets, and other info.
And
Appreciate
recriminations of my Brian Cox.
Yes. Brian Cox does a fine job on HBO's Succession, by the way. If you like Billions, try Billions Light, Succession. Billy.
As good as Billy.
Hi, Al. Do you want to know the results before you judge?
No.
All right, sweet. I will tell you, though, that I spent most of this time, for some reason, YouTube thinks that Fassbender is a bad word. So we had to approve every comment.
Really?
Holy Fassbender!
What a bunch of fast-holes on our chat today.
So, I thought these were some great choices, and Lon, I thought that was a bold choice, and your breaking down the motivations of that character really got me thinking that much more about that strong performance. So I think it's a bold choice, but not a bad one. Danielle, I liked where you're going with Fassbender and like some of the speeches, but at the end of the day, I heard the most specificity and a combination of where the character was at in his trajectory. Lon got a good ding on the notion of this choice with, okay, but you need the entire body of work and him arriving at this place. But I thought, Dan, you cemented it, and just like that, like those heartbreaking moments, like, one of the best nights of my life, that scene after they, that dinner and everything. So it was a beautiful performance, and Dan, I thought you stuck the landing on that. So I go Dan. Ken, where are your thoughts?
Logan fan, quoting scene and page.
I mean, it is Logan. Look, I listened to everything as best I could while I was rating Lon's impression of Brian Cox. Could you, Lon, say he's the worst student we've got?
is the worst student we've got.
That's perfect. It's now up to 95% on the Rotten Impressions meter.
Do you not know Latin? Well, she'll have to work on that.
I waited all the way to the end, and I really did. I got to say, I love what Dan said about bringing it home. About Fassbender, he's definitely great, but you could maybe pick one or two of his other performances. Brian Cox, good, bold choice. Lon didn't convince me that it was memorable above the other ones. What Patrick Stewart did, bringing that character home, that connected with me when Dan talked about that character's legacy come to a close in that role. Even though some of the films might go on, we'll see. Who knows in franchise filmmaking these days. But I went with Dan on that one.
All right, Dan, you get the point. All right, Billy, what did the poll have to say?
What a mistake I made saying the Fassbender thing.
Oh, I could have told you that.
Yeah.
It is coming fast and furious.
What are you getting, like,
Shut your fast.
fast shitter and something?
Thanks. right here, buddy.
On the nose.
I mean, this wasn't even close. At 83% Patrick Stewart for Logan, 9% for Fassbender, and 6% for Brian Cox.
Here's a really fun fact. When we put in our answers, all three of us picked Patrick Stewart for Logan.
Wow.
It's a strong performance.
Yeah,
He's very good.
The option was on the table for us all to take our second choices, but Juan, to his credit, bowed out.
I recently rewatched all the X-Men movies for a video that we were doing, and I was really impressed going back with the Brian Cox performance, so I was glad to get the opportunity to talk about that performance. I think it's an unsung, great comic book movie performance.
Yeah, I was just happy someone got to talk about Patrick Stewart doing it, because
And also Hot Magneto. How can you leave out Hot Magneto?
Although my favorite Fassbender scene is when he goes to, I think it was Argentina, to kill the Nazis, and that's First Class.
I forgot that scene is entirely in German. They speak German.
Yeah. Oh, such a great scene. All right. Dan the Man is up 1-0. If you guys want your revenge on Dan,
I am dead set on
you better
revenge.
start putting points on the board. Get revenge, just like Magneto
at the beginning of any X-Men movie.
Bringing it around. Okay.
Magneto.
Question numero dos.
And you can be Magneto.
Hey, I think you're all pretty Magneto.
Question Professor X.
No, let's not go there.
Question numero dos. Blumhouse's next horror film will be about an evil magic 8-ball. We ask, what haunted object would inspire the best horror film? What haunted object would inspire the best horror film? Question number 2. Let's start with player number 2, Danielle.
So for me, we're doing household objects. You know, I thought about things like swords, which for some people who are sword kids, that is something that you would pick.
Wait, sword kids is a thing?
Sword dudes is a thing.
Okay. Oh, yeah, guys who have, like,
my mom is a sword dude.
Excalibur.
Weirdly enough.
Right.
But so I picked, when I was thinking, what is something that could potentially ruin your life without being haunted and could extra ruin your life with being haunted? And I picked an internet router because nothing can be more life-ruining than the internet. I imagine a movie wherein your internet router is now haunted, and it becomes like a haunted version of Ralph Breaks the Internet, where people can get sucked in, they can get taken out. You know, you can wind up being sucked into the internet yourself, or something can come out. You know, this evil, this haunted demon, whatever this is, can take the form of whatever it can find on the internet, which is basically everything. I'm basically cheated. I'm done.
All right. A haunted Ralph Breaks the Internet. Very intriguing. Thank you, Danielle. Dan.
I also picked something that's already very scary and already a menace. E-scooters.
Just ask JTE.
So apologies to JTE. I hope this is not JT, I hope this doesn't hit too close to home.
Was this taken moments before it happened?
Yes. Oh.
E-scooters. Picture this. This is the opening scene of the movie. Fade in. 2 young kids riding as you should not. Two at a time on an e-scooter on the sidewalk.
Very
They're
dangerous.
having the time of their lives. All of a sudden, it starts swerving off to the left. They look at each other. Stop doing it. I'm not doing that. Get a hold of it. Nobody knows. Before you know it, bam! Right in the middle of a bus. Right in, just head first into a bus.
How dare you?
I'm triggering both of you, Danielle. You and JTE. That's the opening of your film. E-scooters are a menace when used properly. Can you imagine the ghost of a jogger run down in cold blood by a group of teenagers on e-scooters comes back to wipe out those, not even the ones that actually took them down, but to wipe out the entire menace of people on e-scooters. And the thing is, it's not just riding e-scooters. You could be walking down the street, you could be parked in your car, you could be inside. If you live in an apartment building, I promise you there's an e-scooter inside your building somewhere, because people take them and they get paid to charge them and they put them back on the street. They're everywhere and they're coming after you.
All right, the troubled ghost of a jogger. Lon.
So e-scooters plays definitely to JT. We know has a background. I picked something that I know is near to dear to both Billy and Ken's hearts, and that's vaping. So imagine, if you will, a haunted vape pen. Now, every time that you blow a cloud of smoke out of this vape pen, you're releasing a demon into the world that has to kill you within 7 days. Now you're being haunted by this thing that you brought into the world. Like, that's that great dramatic irony we love in horror films, is that these people, they're bringing it on themselves. They're sort of at fault. They're the ones who blew the dank cloud in the first place, and now that dank cloud is following them around the city trying to kill them. And that actually, I want to call the movie, it would look like the title is Dank Clouds, but then you do that horror movie where it gets all staticky for a second and it turns into Dark Clouds. Whoa. Yeah.
Man.
Escape your vape.
Okay.
Coming this fall.
Wow. Okay. All three of these blow my mind. Let's fight it out.
Let's fight it out. First of all, I just want to say, not part of the fight, the Screamoji movie. I think that's what we call you.
Screamoji
You can take that one.
Oh.
That's for free. But here's what I think the big issue is, and it's the same issue I have with a lot of the sort of the later Nightmare on Elm Street films. It's too open. It's too fantastical. Once you can suck people into the internet, you could do literally anything.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's too hard to turn that into a compelling, like, 3-act story. There's no dramatic intensity, because at any moment they could turn a corner and literally anything could happen. It's the same with the Freddy Krueger movies, where eventually it's not that scary, because an arm is just going to come out of this washer dryer and kill them.
And it's not only just being able to come in and out. So, for one thing, it's scary because you have to use the internet. There's no way around it. You don't have to use bird scooters, although everyone keeps acting like you do.
You got to be around them, though.
Oh yeah, but you don't have to use one of those. Please stop. But with this one, their 3 acts are very simple. You get the evil router. You're very happy to move into your new home. You set up all of your new electronics.
I'm with you so far.
Now I'm triggering Billy, and then you put in.
You paid your mortgage.
and then you put in your evil router. And so Act 1, all of a sudden, weird things start happening around the house. Oh my God, why is my credit union calling me? Why do I suddenly have all of this money in my account and the cops are coming to get me? What is happening? See? Terrifying. Yeah. Reality is the worst. But then in Act 2, where things start getting kind of dark and weird, at that point, all of a sudden everyone around you, their things start getting affected, and the world becomes affected. This thing has made itself into a demon virus that can hop from router to router. Then Act 3, then you go into the internet, because that is how you have to solve it. You have to shut it down, leaping and bounding from Twitter tweet to tweet to tweet to tweet, just hopping over them and throwing and going around and debate me. You're like, I don't have time, until you can finally shut down this evil demon.
The villains are like internet memes and
They
content.
can be.
I think you just described the actual Emoji Movie.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's actually the plot of the
Isn't
Emoji
that
Movie.
evil?
Yeah,
Isn't that movie evil? Isn't
I
it
was
terrifying?
scared when I watched it.
I mean, a 4G hotspot, unplug your router, your problem is solved.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is there's many more ways to go. I just go to the library. If it's
Scary
one
for different
specific
reasons.
router, scary for different reasons, but not because there's a haunted router
Support
there.
your local libraries. Books are great.
A haunted vape pen. That's interesting, but I feel like the thing that doesn't make it quite as scary for me is that you are in a way, you are the instrument of your own destruction.
Yeah,
it's because of your own. I think once we have enough time to study what vaping is, being killed by the vapor ghosts, you're really just moving up the inevitable. It'd be like haunted cigarettes. It's in the mind of the audience. It's just like, well, you could just quit, and then there's not a problem.
Well, and then
and it's probably better
you
for
could just not watch the Ring videotape, but you don't know in advance. That's the whole thing. You've done it to yourself, but because of your ignorance.
Well, and I think also the problem is that part of what we love about horror movies and part of the suspense is there are always going to be people that we want to not die. I want everyone who vapes clouds real deep to die.
That's what makes it so satisfying. The one person who it's their first time trying vaping, they don't like it, but now they're cursed. There's your hero. And yeah, everybody else, it's fun to see them get picked off. That's the slasher movie credo. You know, I want to see all these teens in the woods get it. And as for the bird scooter, I think it's a little too close. You're basically doing Birdemic. It's the
Just
birds.
Just because they both have bird in the name?
No,
I
but
don't understand.
It's that swarm.
It's like Maximum
It's the
Drive.
creature feature. It's just the swarm of things, and they're chasing everybody. And it's like, we've seen it a million times. Doing it with scooters is a little different, but we've seen it with vehicles. We've seen it with critters.
And we
we've
haven't
seen it with
ghost
gremlins.
movies. We haven't seen ghost movies 100 times.
We have not seen
haven't
a vapor
haunted.
cloud turns into a demon that
Ghosts
stalks
are
you.
vapor clouds. That's what they are.
They're
They
ectoplasm,
literally exist
sir.
as vapor clouds.
Can we get a fact check on this? Ghosts are made of ectoplasm.
Ghosts
Thank
are
you.
made of anything, Lon. They're not real.
They're made of words
portrayed
and
as
fiction.
vapor clouds and have been forever.
Hot takes. Are ghosts real? Chime in. Hashtag movie
Vote,
5.
vote on the poll if you think ghosts are real.
But the e-scooter thing, it's about the collateral damage. It's about the fact that it's not something that you use. You're not getting picked off because you used something. You're getting picked off because somebody else did something.
Well,
somebody else used something,
Is
and
the
now you're
villain
being
just-
punished for it.
is
That's
the-
what's scary.
Is the villain just faceless swarms of e-scooters,
Not
or is there
faceless
like
swarms.
someone?
It's kind of like a Fallen, but imagine instead of the ghost passing between John Goodman and people, it's from scooter to scooter.
So it's one. So there's one evil scooter, but it could be any.
You never know which one it is, and they're all faceless. There's 20 of them lined up. Is one of them evil? Are none of them evil? You don't know. You can try to escape, but any way you try to go, that scooter could be right there.
But just one bird scooter is not really that scary.
Ask JTE.
He was on it though. He wasn't attacking him. It was him being a klutz. To be fair.
To be
Bird
fair,
scooter.
it did attack him.
He attacked a tree and then the pavement.
I have had plenty of encounters with one bird scooter, my friend, that were plenty scary for me.
Well, you know what's scary for me? What's scary for me is if someone having the ability to ruin my credit forever. If someone's going to do that, I don't want it to be a demon. I want it to be me. So
if the question was what haunted everyday object would inspire the best psychological thriller, I'd be like, fair enough. But horror.
Danielle, let's move to final thoughts, please. Favor us with your final
With my final thoughts, again, unfortunately, both of these movies, while I would honestly watch either of them, for either one of them, the premise of people on bird scooters getting straight up murked, I definitely would not, there wouldn't be suspenseful for me because I would be like literally any day now. Same with everybody who is vaping. It's just hey, can we, I want to like do the deaths and then we can peace out. With this, being able to be a haunted router means that you can, it opens up so many possibilities for stories. There's any of the things that I talked about. Again, you can get things where the router takes the form of someone that's on the internet. The router comes in and maybe it looks like your mom. I don't know. And so because you're able to expand it, I think that it is more friendly for franchises, which we're all trying to do now. We want to get at least 3 movies out of it. And so I think that the haunted router would be the way to go. I can't even say it without laughing.
All right. Danielle already has her eyes on a router universe.
Yeah. Router expanded universe.
This fall, prepare to get routed.
Nice. Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this idea of the internet is spooky and evil. The Black Mirror, like I said, the Emoji Movie, the kids' movies are taking on this theme now. I just don't see a whole lot of originality that's not going to seem like a rehash of something we've seen on TV and several different other things, even, like just Ghost in the Machine type thing. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like that's well-trodden ground. With the vape pen, again, it's a ghost movie, but I just don't... I don't see the what's the hook other than like the delivery system is different, but then it's just a ghost movie. And like I said, I don't necessarily think that all people in vape should die. It's better than walking through a cloud of smoke. I've got to be honest. If I have to choose between walking through a cherry flavored cloud of vape and a wall of cigarette smoke, I'll choose the cherry vape. At least it doesn't smell terrible. The thing with the bird scooters or the lime scooters, or whatever kind of scooters that you're going to use, and maybe it's all of them, is the fact that they are everywhere. They all look exactly the same, and you never know which one it's going to be. And you can't get away from it by not. You can get away from it by not vaping. You can avoid it by not using the internet router. You can't get away from the Bird or the Lime or the e-scooter by not using it because they're everywhere. So you can run, but guess what? You're playing right into its hands if you run, because then you're in motion, and that's where the e-scooter thrives, my friends. This is a villain that you cannot escape from, that can actively catch up with you. It could take out your friends. It could take out total strangers. You never know. It's kind of like death in Final Destination. Who knows where it's coming from, but you might be next. Faceless.
All
Scary.
right, they're coming after you wherever you run. Lon.
Well, I mean, I think one big issue with that, talk about the e-scooters, is they're not everywhere. They're in major urban centers. If you live in a rural area in the Midwest, your town is not overrun with e-scooters, which also gives that's like kind of a fatal flaw. Just like It Follows, where people are like, well, just fly to Europe and then it'll take It Follows forever to find you. Well, just go to somewhere in Montana where there aren't really e-scooters. That scooter is going to take forever. How fast they travel? 12 miles an hour? 10 miles an hour?
Not haunted, my friend.
That's going to take that scooter forever to get to you. And also, I think the facelessness is a problem. There's not a villain for us to latch onto. It is the same kind of problem with these faceless horror movies, where it's just like, it's hard to get too invested in the scenario because there isn't a compelling horror villain. It kind of hurts you in terms of the franchise. With the internet, again, I just feel like it's too open. There's a million scary things on the internet. We've had haunted websites. We've had haunted stuff in your phone. We've had all this haunted technology. I think you need to really drill into, like, what's the scary thing on the internet that we're actually freaked out by, and, like, sort of drill into that more. I actually think a haunted modem, like, coming to life and chasing you might almost be scarier than getting stuck in a haunted internet. Now, as for the vaping, I think the thing that is it's universally relatable. Everybody knows some guy who vapes in their town. And I think you've got a lot of jumping off for future franchises. Like, what part of the vape is haunted? Is it the juice that's haunted? Is it the battery that's haunted? Is it a function of itself? There's all sorts of stuff to investigate the nature of these ghosts once they come out. And they're ghosts. Once they come out, they have personalities. Maybe there are other people whose souls got sucked in by the vape. You've got a nemesis. You've got somebody to sort of aim the movie at. You've got somebody who needs to be defeated. And I think that's sort of at the core of what makes these kinds of movies fun.
Damn time. There you go. First off, I want to apologize to all of our audience that vapes.
I vape.
Jeez.
You know
I
what?
vape CBD.
Yeah.
But it's still funny.
Keep vaping your weed. Keep vaping your tobacco. God bless you.
It's just a movie. It's just, I don't really want anything to happen. It's just a movie.
Also,
no.
Lon, I have one for you. Ghost dabs.
Yeah.
Oh, snap. Okay.
Very nice.
Ken, please chime in with facts and give us your opinion on this round.
Well fought round. I love movie pitch rounds. Very good. I went to the internet to find some facts. 4 days ago, Consumer Reports ran an article saying that there have been 8 deaths tied to e-scooters since 2017.
JT, you got off lucky.
A 2016 NPR article says ghosts might be made of dark matter and dark energy, question mark? Kevin Jackson on Twitter watching the show says, I like the idea of the haunted vape pen. It can double as an ad campaign against vaping because it brings demons that can kill you. As far as the
You should sell
emoji
that.
plot, similar to Danielle's, yeah, there might be some similarities, but hey, Emoji Movie cost $50 million to make, and it made $217.8 million at the box office.
Bravo.
For me, in terms of the pitch, I love pitch in movies. It's one of the only times I win points here in movie fights unless I'm drunk, and I will say, Danielle put together a realistic 3-act movie that I could believe in. I like the other ideas pitched here. Dan's comeback of, hey, unplug the router, but hey, you could step over the scooter like JT should have done a year ago. Or, vape pens, we don't want to cast aspersions too much on vapors. I mean, kind of. But I'm going with Danielle here.
All right, that's one for Danielle. Yeah, I thought these were all fun pitches. Danielle's, once we started getting into going around the internet, it also reminded me, what was that film with John Ritter where he went into cable
Stay
TV?
Tuned.
Stay Tuned, yeah. I was getting, it was harkening back to Stay Tuned. So I liked elements of that. Dan had some fun imagery. I like that there was a ghost of specifically the ghost of this jogger. But at the end of the day, I was I really started to gravitate towards Lon. Just the fact that I think that your dig on him, Danielle, he turned it around really
I saw
nicely.
it coming as soon as I did it too.
Like if we got the douchiest vapors, it's like these deaths that you love to hate. There's something just juicy about that. And then when he was talking about, which part is it? Like, is there an evil company putting out this vape juice? You got me thinking.
Silver Shamrock.
Yeah, it was all fun, but I got to go on. So we have one for Danielle, one for Lon. Billy, what's happening over on the polls?
The vapor chase.
This one was a lot closer than the last one at 51%. The internet goes with Lon and the vape pen at 30%. These numbers never really add up.
Nope.
At 30%, I was like, carry the 4. At 30%, internet router, and at only 17%, we have a lot of JTE movie thinkers that do not want to see a repeat of the scooter incident.
Wait till those scooters make it to your town.
They are everywhere. They're just really expensive litter. I always find them like right in front of my apartment building. I've stepped over them. They're not even supposed to be like
because their popularity has crested, but they just keep putting more of them on the street. So
and
it's
different brands.
And now there's like little motorized bicycles and stuff.
It really is the worst. I hate it.
Yep. Technology. It's jumped the shark. Okay. JT, glad you're on the mend. It is.
Sorry, JT.
Dan won. Lon won. Danielle looking to get on the board. Question number 3. Here she comes. So rumor has it the new Batman will face off against the Penguin. So we ask in Matt Reeves' movie, who should take on the role of Oswald Cobblepot? Who should be the Penguin? And this is question 3. We start with player 3. Dan.
I like the Penguin. I've only seen him in one movie. He's been in several TV shows and cartoon animated series and stuff. But the Penguin, we only know the Danny DeVito Penguin cinematically. So we've had that one take. The actor, and I looked at a lot of different ones. The one that really stuck with me that I kept coming back to is Kenneth Branagh. Kenneth Branagh, known as he's a director, but he's also quite the actor, if you may not know him. He does more than direct Thor. He is a Shakespearean actor. He has been in blockbuster films, blockbuster movies. He's been in smaller movies. And the reason that I picked Kenneth Branagh is I want to see the side of the Penguin that was... The background was hinted at in the Danny DeVito version that we've seen cinematically, but they didn't really go into this version of the actual character. And the way that I would like to see them match up, which is that we have Robert Pattinson as a young Batman, which also means a young Bruce Wayne. And what I love about Oswald Cobblepot and what you can go into is not this creature from the sewers that rises to the top, but this guy who is entrenched in the aristocracy and the upper class of Gotham City. Because Oswald Cobblepot is from a rich background, he has money, he has wealth, and so I want to see a version of the Penguin who basically already runs the world that Bruce Wayne is coming into. And I think the upside of that is not only can Batman do battle against the Penguin, but Bruce Wayne as his family's old money, but Bruce Wayne is new money. Bruce Wayne is really just, when he becomes Batman, coming into this world. And we've always seen in the movies, he's always like kind of shunned the playboy side of himself, like unless he's George Clooney with the model on his arm. But this idea that Batman can battle the Penguin both in and out of costume, that you can have this Penguin that's at the top of the ladder, and this is a big challenge for both Batman and Bruce Wayne. I think that's a really fun way to paint those characters and to establish that we have a younger Batman. So Kenneth Branagh, I think, of course you'll do a little prosthetic work, but I don't want to go the full like stringy hair, black goop coming out of the mouth that we had Danny DeVito doing. Like I want this kind of wealthy upper crust version of the Penguin for Batman and Bruce Wayne to battle, and I think Kenneth Branagh would be really good at that part.
All right, Dan pitching a goop-free Penguin.
Goop-free Penguin.
No goop.
Around the horn to lawn.
So I picked an actor very different again, but like Dan, I'd like to get away from the freakish, monstrous Penguin that we got. I love Batman Returns. I love that take on it, but I think we've seen that, and it would be interesting. There's a lot of shades to this character. One of the things I think is so interesting about the Penguin is his self-view. The way he sees himself is so different from the rest of the world and how he's perceived. He sees himself as kind of the gentleman of crime, this aristocratic, wealthy captain of industry. But the rest of the world, he's a scumbag. I mean, he owns a nightclub, and he's a criminal. He's a crook. And I think that a guy that I think can really capture that arrogance and that disconnect of not understanding how the world sees him is Jason Schwartzman. I think we've seen him in the past. He can play crafty. He can play clever. He can play like, I think I'm the smartest guy in the room, all of which I think really fits Oswald Cobblepot serves well. But he's really got that, like, he's a weasel. And everybody else sort of thinks he's a weasel, but he doesn't know it. He's kind of floating above that perception of him. We've seen him do that in many Wes Anderson films, and also in films like sort of Listen Up, Philip, and some of these other indie roles that he's played, and Marie Antoinette even as well. And I think that same version of sort of Jason Schwartzman and what he does, but in the world of Gotham, playing this character would be a really interesting, different take on the character. And also, age-wise, I think is a really good mix for Pattinson. He feels like a peer for the Robert Pattinson character that would be sort of believable to have them face off.
Lon coming in with Jason Schwartzman. Danielle.
So I'm glad that we all kind of agree that, as good as that Danny DeVito version is, and everyone knows that's like close to my heart, we kind of want to get away from that. There are so many great aspects of Penguin. You've mentioned a lot of them. For me, I'm really into the idea that not only is he the gentleman of crime, he's a mob boss. He runs the mafia, and I feel like that's something that we've really gotten away from in a lot of these movies. And I like, aside from having the big Joker, the explosions, all of those things, just like that real Gotham is a city of crime. And I think the best person that would be able to pull that off would be Brian Tyree Henry, who a lot of people unfortunately only know as Paperboy, even though he's like a great actor. He's a fantastic actor. He has a lot of range, and I fully believe that he could pull off being this incredibly smart gentleman mob boss who you would also be terrified of if he, with one look, but who could also be incredibly charming because Oswald Cobblepot is a very charming character.
All right, Danielle coming in with Brian Tyree Henry. Fight it out.
Jason Schwartzman, he's done. I mean, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. He literally owns a nightclub. He's a supervillain. He's smarmy. He's in the living. He's done that. I've seen that flavor from him before, and I just don't see the. I think Danielle and I both are working on different levels, maybe, but the intimidation factor. Mm-hmm. There, like for example, like a peer. Like I don't want to see Batman fight a peer. I don't want to see somebody who's like on the same level as Batman, especially if he's new. Like I want to see someone who is his superior, because that to me is what makes it an interesting fight.
It's not really the Penguin. I mean, the of all the Gotham Rogues gallery, like Batman doesn't really like knock down, drag out fights against the Penguin. It's sort of through proxies, or it's a different level. So I don't think you need the physically imposing. In fact, I almost feel like that cuts against the character
I don't
in
mean
some
physically.
ways.
I just mean like an actual peer, like another young guy. Like I don't. It's not as interesting to me as opposed to someone who's got more experience, who's not another young upstart. Like he's there, he's already there. I mean, that's what Batman really is about. It's getting rid of the entrenched villainy.
Well, it's got some storylines. I mean, I think that's definitely a take. Like, I think these are malleable stories. There could be a lot of different takes. I mean, you could definitely have the Penguin has been a long-time mob boss who's been running things in Gotham City for decades, but you can also have the Penguin is a relatively new guy on the scene who's climbing the criminal ladder. I mean, they're both viable.
Just did that. Gotham just spent 4 seasons doing that. Penguin from the ground up. He starts as a low-level mob guy and goes to the top.
Yeah, but it's
just
bad.
Had that beat.
Like it's not interesting.
Not
we can do a cool
Batman
version
fans.
of it.
Mm-hmm. Even people that didn't like Gotham, a lot of them, the one thing they took away from it was that they liked the Penguin, and they liked that actor, they liked the character, they liked that portrayal. So I think that's a double beat on what we just saw with the Penguin, which was the rise through crime, especially for Batman fans. I think they might want something a little newer.
I mean, I think the problem with Kenneth Branagh is it's too much like that's who the Penguin sees himself as. You're playing so much into that image that it almost doesn't feel recognizable as the character. I mean, he's got to be ridiculous on some level, like he's the Penguin. It's maybe Batman's most ridiculous nemesis. And I think if you lose that entirely and you Nolanize it to the point that
First
it's
of all,
just like...
No, I'm not doing that. You're saying that I'm doing that, but I'm not. If you don't think Kenneth Branagh can play ridiculous arch-villain, go watch Wild Wild West.
But that's terrible.
Go back and watch it. The movie is terrible. Kenneth Branagh knows exactly what's going on. He knows the excess that's going on around him. The problem was that nobody else in the movie knew what was going on.
That's incredibly cartoonish and broad, which I also... if it was Joel Schumacher...
But you were saying that my choice was too Nolanesque and too dark and gritty, and I'm telling you that
Kenneth Branagh... you didn't want him to do what he
I'm
did.
saying that, but I'm saying that Kenneth Branagh can play the other note, is what I'm saying. Is you were trying to say that my
I don't know
choice was
if
too dark, and I'm
Wild
saying no.
West proves that Kenneth Branagh can play bigger. I think it proves he sort of misses the mark when he tries, and it becomes ludicrous and almost unwatchable.
No, I disagree. Again,
All
if you
right.
watch that performance,
I mean, I would say to the audience, go back and watch Wild Wild West and see which side that you fall down.
I'm never gonna say you guys have to go do that. It's okay. If
It's
you want,
not-
if you
point
want
being,
to.
I'm not saying
He's
needs,
one of the big marks against that movie.
I'm
in my
not saying he needs to replicate what he did in Wild Wild West. I'm just saying you were saying my pick was not good because you were putting a direction on it that I don't want
But
to
even
take
when you
this
see
character.
Branagh playing like Poirot in the Orient Express recently, like that's a big, colorful character, and he's still underplaying it. And I mean, that's great. Kenneth Branagh's a great actor. I like what he does a lot.
Yes.
But I don't. Maybe not for the Penguin. I think there's so many. Like he'd be an amazing Raj Al Ghul.
A character that I would liken it more toward is what he did in the Harry Potter movies. Gilderoy Lockhart. He's a big guy. He has a public face. He puts on a big show. But behind that, there's another level that you don't know about until afterwards. He's a coward. He's a fraud. He's a phony. And again, not replicating that performance, but that's what I mean is Kenneth Branagh can play bigger characters with more underneath them that isn't just dark and Shakespearean and King Macbeth. I think people just think of Shakespeare when they think of Kenneth Branagh, and he's capable of doing so much more than that. Brian Tyree Henry, I think, again, it goes down to what characterization is more interesting to you. And I mean, that's just a debate that we all have. Three have different characterizations. For me, I think it's more interesting to have a characterization of the Penguin that's less, as you said, like terrifying with one look, and more like terrifying because no one sees how evil he is, and you have to fight not only that person but public opinion and public perception, which is another fight that you have.
Which I do think is super interesting. I think that's a great take. These are all great takes, let's be real. But it does come down, there is a certain point in every one of these movies where you have to take the hero and you have to take the villain, and they got to be staring each other down and something has to happen. It doesn't necessarily have to be a punch fest or any of that, but at a certain point you have to get these two in a room. And I would like it so that when you do finally get our bats into a room with the Penguin, it isn't one of these things where it's like, oh, well, he's gonna, that little weaselly dude, he's gonna knock him out with one punch. It might not even be a fight, but I want it to feel like it could be believable that these two people might be able to square off against each other, or it might be a war of words, which, I like your take and I like what you're doing. I do feel like we already saw, maybe not exactly that, but a version of that in Batman versus Superman, which I thought that was a good characterization. I didn't like it. It wasn't
Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, Jesse Eisenberg. It wasn't like quite Lex Luthor-y, but I thought that it was a fun interpretation of that. But I feel like we have already gotten that with one of these major villains, and so I want to try something that's a little new. Brian Tyree Henry, he can give you Shakespeare if you need to. He can be Paperboy if you need him to. He can be a fun dad if you need him to. And I think those are the qualities, and all of these are great actors, but I feel like those are the qualities where he can give people something that they're not going to be expecting, because so many people think of him as Paperboy, and they don't really know that he's, this actor who's been on Broadway, like nominated for Tonys. People don't know that he's an amazing actor. And so I think that he could also be a surprise, where it's something where he could do something with the Penguin where the Penguin is able to be malleable, change personalities depending on where he's at. If he is upper crust.
Shift gears and go to thoughts.
Great.
Final ones from Dan, starting off.
Again, different approaches, and everyone has their favorite approach. But what makes Kenneth Branagh on the Penguin and this take on the Penguin more interesting to me is, again, we've seen Batman fight against people his own age, his peers. I mean, that's a lot of the Nolan verse. He was mostly were people his own age or people that were around the same age as him. Even the Joker, etc., the Scarecrow. And then with Brian Tyree Henry, we just got a great boss, kingpin type like that with Vincent D'Onofrio, who was the kingpin, who was a guy who was at the top of the mob and ran the mob, but was also very physically intimidating. He could intimidate you with one look, and that was a great beat to have. that people might respond to that in a Batman movie, but I think something that what you want with these new Batman movies is something new, a fresh take, something new and something different. And what I think Kenneth Branagh brings is the kind of menace that you get from someone who maybe can't scare you with one look, or maybe doesn't have the youth and the vigor of someone on the rise, but is somebody who has the arsenal of power behind them. And I think that Kenneth Branagh can play those shades. He can do the public face. I think he can do the villainous stuff. But he doesn't have to go as far as Wild Wild West. That was an example to say, like, he's not dark and brooding. He has many different shades from every side of the spectrum available at his disposal as an actor. And it's really a combination of the actor and the take. I like the take on the Penguin, something different, something new for Batman cinematically, and also an actor that I think would fit that approach for these new movies.
Branagh. Dan. Round the horn to lawn.
I mean, again, I think one of the things that I would like to capture in the Penguin that I don't think we captured before in the DeVito version that I think is so great and interesting about this character is that clash, that awkward sort of juxtaposition of a guy who personally is a little weaselly, is a little nebbishy, but who is also brilliant enough and strong enough and vicious enough to rise in this Gotham underworld and become the Penguin. And I think that's what Jason Schwartzman, we've seen him a bunch of times as the arrogant guy, maybe in over his depth, who's pushing through it, maybe sort of awkwardly or uncomfortably. We've seen him do that really well in a bunch of other things. We've seen that he can sort of take on a comic book role as a guy who's in this world and sort of do it believably. And I think that would be a really interesting sort of basis to start for this character. I think these are both great actors and great choices. I don't mean to knock either of these guys. The thing with Brian Tyree Henry, he's got this cool, he's got this charisma, even in a villain role. I don't know if you guys saw Widows. He's amazing in that. And he's the bad guy, he's the heavy, but he's not the terrifying heavy. That's Daniel Kaluuya. He's the almost likable, I want to be on this guy's side even though he's the heavy. And I feel like that's kind of wrong for that. I shouldn't feel like I kind of want to be on the Penguin side. I should find him loathsome on some level. I think that element of what DeVito did I would want to keep. The sort of the thing for Branagh is I feel like when he plays that level of awkward or when he plays kind of nebbishy, it doesn't always play. You get Celebrity, that Woody Allen movie. You get Dead Again, which is a great movie, but I don't love his performance in it. And I think he's not sort of great at that kind of middle ground. He's great at these sort of sly, subdued heroes, and he's great at the Shakespeare stuff. I don't know if he necessarily hits what I would see for the Penguin. I feel like there's a lot of Batman villains we could give him that might be a better, tighter fit. So that's why I'm going with Jason Schwartzman.
Thank you, Schwartzman. Danielle.
So with Schwartzman, again, all great choices. I don't, and it does depend on the take. I do feel that he could do, kind of the smarmy, but when I think of the Penguin, I don't necessarily think of someone who is smarmy or who has more confidence in himself that he is competent. The Penguin is scary competent. That's how come he is able to be a dude who looks like the Penguin and talks like the Penguin and is able to be as destructive in Gotham City as he is. With Kenneth Branagh, I appreciate that you want to do something a little bit new, maybe not have someone who is on his age. I do think that is something that we did get to see a little bit of in Batman Begins, so it's not brand new. Granted, there was, he has a fountain, he goes in it, he gets young, whatever. It's not brand new, whereas I feel like it is something that is really new with Brian Tyree Henry. He isn't very cool in every role. He was not cool as a dad in Spider-Verse, and he was terrifying as the warlord in Book of Mormon. And so, but I like that he can be either one of those things on a dime. I think that when you have a character who can be either charming or cool if they need to be, genuinely cool, really cool, and then have them be terrifying when they need to be, I think that that's a new element, and I think that would be something that would work really well with the Penguin's character, who is someone who is rich, is wealthy, is upper crust, or considers himself to be very upper crust, but is also dealing with the lowest of the low as essentially a mob boss in Gotham City, which is the lowest of the low of cities.
Time. There you go, Danielle with BTH. Good
BTH.
Fight, you guys. Knapsack, what do we got in the fact zone?
Well, I'll tell you, that was a really good fight because I had, at one point or another, being swayed by each of them there. In terms of facts, Penguin calls himself the gentleman of crime. We'll come back to that later here. Lon picking 2 cast members from one of my favorite films, Rushmore. Bonus point. Schwartzman, 38. Robert Pattinson, 33. Brad Pitt, still 55. Brian Tyree Henry, 37. Branagh, 60. Born in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Directed Keanu Reeves in 1993's Much Ado About Nothing. Choices. Brian Knight on Twitter says Andy Serkis. Jack Shipley, our old friend Jack, who I do believe I still have a restraining order against us. I want to flip the tables here. The Penguin doesn't have to be played by a man. I like to have Viola Davis in the role. And just for weird facts, Danny DeVito, 48, Michael Keaton, 41 during Batman Returns. Wild Wild West has a 17% tomato meter, and Brian Tyree Henry nominated in 2018 for Tony in the film in the play Lobby Hero. Now, as far as my choices, you want that now?
You know what?
You
sure.
want that?
Yeah, lay it on.
I'm doing
brother.
TV fights
Emmy
fact
last year,
checking
too.
here. We run things a little different.
Do it.
So I like I said, at one point or another, everyone had me convinced. I love the Penguin that Dan was describing, and in Lon's closing remarks, he kind of talked me out of Schwartzman by accident by what he was saying. Then it comes down to Danielle and Dan. And by a smidge, you both chose great performers, great facts to support up. I just like the Penguin Dan was describing, so it's almost not even the choice. I think Branagh can fit that better, and I wanted that, and Dan convinced me of that Penguin.
Right on. I, too, liked the way Dan described the Penguin fitting into that world. Bruce Wayne going tit for tat with someone not just on the hero-villain level, but on the real life, on the streets of Gotham. You know, one on the streets, one in the sheets.
Bird scooter on the streets.
But I thought there were some blows that landed. It's just as far as, I don't know, for lack of a better term, like, just, I don't know, Branagh brings a little bit of a foofiness to some of his portrayal. I don't know.
Gilderoy Lockhart is foofy. You gotta give him at least that.
And I'm not sure, I don't know, it called into question to me. Danielle, I thought, made a great point with hearkening, because I was thinking this, and then she nailed it with Eisenberg in Batman v Superman. That tone, it's very similar there, and it worked, in fits and starts in the Justice
There'd be no
League.
jars full of urine in my mouth.
That's a strike against.
I want to make that very clear.
But the more I thought about Danielle, because Brian Tyree Henry, he's an actor who, everything I've seen him in, he loses himself in the role. He's so believable. And just as far as the actor, like, Dan had points for just the plot breakdown of where he thought Branagh fit in the world. Lon had some stuff as far as like the ages as well. But yeah, I don't know. I am most intrigued by Danielle's choice, and she got me most interested. So I'm going Danielle. So it's one for Dan, one for Danielle. Let's go to the polls.
Yeah, I'm just getting the most up-to-date one. I still have to approve Fassbender comments. Thanks, guys. This was a closer one, and it was going back and forth a lot, but ultimately at 49%, Dan with Kenneth Branagh, down to 32% was Danielle's choice with Brian Tyree Henry, and at 16 or 18, I can't see it, doesn't matter, Jason Schwartzman.
All right.
I'm just happy to let people know that Paperboy is a good actor. I feel like I've done my duty today.
No, at this point,
Some
he's
people
been
don't-
in like 8 great movies.
Some people really don't know. They really just think that he is like
But
Paperboy.
he's also, he's great as Paperboy.
Great as Paperboy.
That's a phenomenal performance
Emmy
on its own.
nominated. Like the same year nominated for Tonys and Emmys, and I feel like people don't give him his due.
Absolutely. No,
The general audience
he resonates truth in like whatever role you drop him in. He's freaking great. Danielle, you're freaking great, but I'm sorry, it's just Dan and Lon going into the speed round here. Dan is up 2 points to 1, and let's get fast. Again, I will ask the question, call out your answers. You have 20 seconds to elaborate on your answer, and then we'll go for 10-second rebuttals in the same order. Once again, Dan is up 2 points to 1. First question of the speed round. Secret Life of Pets 2 is opening. We ask, what movie, animal, or creature would make the best pet? What movie, animal, or creature would make the best pet?
Shadow from Homeward Bound.
Shadow from Homeward Bound.
The goose that lays golden eggs from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Okay.
Explain it flavor.
We got the golden goose. We got Shadow. We heard Shadow from Homeward Bound first. Dan, 20 seconds again when you speak.
First of all, Shadow is a good dog. He's a good dog. He is loyal. He is a leader. If the worst happens, if he's lost or if you're separated, he will find his way home to you. And that's what I want in a pet. I want loyalty. I want somebody that I can come home to at the end of the day, that if the worst happens, they will find their way back to me. It's security.
I mean, you got a pet. You got a responsibility. You shouldn't be thinking about your pet in terms of what happens if I lose it. You hang on to that pet. And if we're talking about pets that you're going to make sure that you're responsible and you're hanging on to your pet, what would be better than a goose that lays golden eggs? You're rich. So you got nothing to do all day but hang around and watch your goose and make sure it doesn't run away. Dang.
I'm interested in what my pet can give, what I can give my pet, not what my pet can give me. And if you've been around geese, they're mean, man. I want a pet that I can pet, that I can cuddle with, that'll sit next to me on the couch, not one that I just want for what it can give me.
The question was not what pet do you want as your only pet. I'll get a dog. Plenty of dogs like Shadow. I'll just keep Goose in the backyard, get the golden eggs, and then hang out with my dog inside.
Awful. Awful odor.
All right, you know what? Lon coming in hot, casting aspersions on Dan as a pet owner in his first round. And you know what? I mean, he made some good points there. I gotta go.
I'm not gonna abandon the dog on the side of the road.
I mean, you should have said that in the rebuttal round.
I think that knowing me, hopefully you would know that about me.
Yes, I bet you'd be a good pet owner, but I gotta go what I heard in the round. In real life, I think you'd be a fantastic pet owner.
I am.
In that round, you know good. I go long. Billy.
Look, as a business venture, I'm all in on the Golden Goose train, but it's best pet. And I think in terms of Dan laid out for me a better argument about why Shadow would make a better pet rather than a moneymaker while I go enjoy other pets. So I'm going with Dan.
Billy, that makes some sense.
You're not thinking fourth dimensional.
Okay, all right, it's 1-1. Ken?
Look, best pet. Dan laid out what makes a good pet and why you want a pet. Lon laid out a good business plan if you have a mortgage or something in your life.
Which somebody does.
As someone who has been bitten by a goose while feeding bread to the ducks in the park, Dan really nailed that point home with me. I'm going Dan Murrell and a nice dog.
All right, 3-1 Dan. Moving to game point right here.
Geese suck. There's so many in Seattle.
So mean.
And when I would walk down, the geese, I would have to walk to work and they would surround me.
Oh no.
I almost got eaten by geese, guys.
Oh my gosh. You know what?
I'll sit at home with my several dogs and my millions of dollars, and you guys can hang out with a dog that talks that you can't hear. That sounds fun.
I'm gonna be cuddling with that dog.
He's also old.
Get within 3
I didn't
feet
get to
of that
mention it
goose.
during. Shadow's
He's gonna
got
be
2-3 years left.
Band-Aids.
I'm glad we brought back
Donamichi?
after the fights for this particular episode.
That dog's dead in a year.
Don't you dare impugn Donamichi. I'll take a year with Shadow over 10 years with your stupid goose.
I will buy a mansion.
Great first question. All right, this is game point. Lon, you need this to keep her going.
Sure do.
Robert Pattinson, we're just talking about this guy. He's our new Batman, but he's still getting a lot of grief for starring in Twilight. Which actor or actress deserves to be taken more seriously? Which actor or actress deserves to be taken more seriously?
Adam Sandler.
The Sandman?
Man, one of those things where the mind just goes.
Sure. 5, 4.
I'll go with Pattinson's Twilight co-star. I'll go with Kristen Stewart.
K-Stew. We got the Sandman and K-Stew. I call these two exclusively by their nicknames. We heard Lon first.
Adam Sandler makes a lot of crummy movies fast because he likes to go on vacation. But when you put him in a really good role that he can sink his teeth into, he's actually great. Punch Drunk Love, even among Paul Thomas Anderson's films, is a really accomplished film with a really strong... Most actors, even in good movies, will never reach that point in their entire career. And it's a shame that this guy, who's very talented at comedy, good at characters, doesn't get more respect.
Kristen Stewart, after Twilight and after Snow White and all that stuff, has consistently sought out interesting work and yet continues to be painted with the Twilight brush. You mentioned Punch Drunk Love. That was, 2003, 2004? Adam Sandler could have written his own ticket and been in any kind of movies that he wanted. He chose to make crappy comedy after crappy comedy after crappy comedy. That's his choice. He made one interesting choice 15 years ago.
I mean, I think the problem is Adam Sandler doesn't get offered those kinds of roles because he's been pigeonholed in this thing. Kristen Stewart is in a lot of great movies, and people who love film already know Kristen Stewart's been in, like, Personal Shopper, movies that win festivals. I don't think she's really that underrated.
I think that she is. In the eyes of the general public, she's thought of as Bella. She's thought of as Twilight. Adam Sandler wasn't pigeonholed by someone else. He writes those movies and produces them himself. He makes those movies. He's the reason.
Woo! All right. Mr. Ken Knapsack, what do you think?
First of all, to the people in the comments saying I'm on my phone, this is called a timer to keep track of the 20 seconds.
And I use it every week, so
they don't just make
back.
phone calls to these devices. So, look, Punch Drunk Love's one of my favorite movies from that era. I love Sandler. But Dad kept hitting home the hard truth, and Lon kind of admitted it. Sandler likes taking his buddies on vacation and will bring some cameras. He doesn't care. Why should we? Kristen Stewart, I think she, like Pattinson, will eventually get past that Twilight label that a lot of the general public puts on her. I'm going Dan Murrell.
Billy Biz?
Yeah, look, I hate to make this anticlimactic, but that was, to me, a no-brainer. I think Dan really took that one from the get-go and didn't let go, so I'm going Dan.
Boom, Dan, you took that. You took the game. Well played, Dan Murrell.
Also, 6 degrees from Taylor Lautner just now. So that's not to be taken seriously.
Oh, okay.
No, I've seen him act, but no, just like everyone here has
right.
worked.
Ridiculous
Yeah,
six.
that's true.
Yep.
I like it. Taylor Lautner co-star club.
Well, Dan, we've begun this gauntlet of matches, and you made short work of the competition. Is that how this is going to go down? Are you calling your shot?
No.
Clean sweep all month long?
Never. This was
not a clean sweep.
Humble as always.
Well,
you know what I mean.
A clean sweep means... It's not a you know what I mean.
No, Lon, you performed admirably. Yes, everyone did. I love Danielle's arguments.
I'm fine.
Winning everything. Dan,
Yes.
well played today.
This was fun.
Yes.
I got heated. I would never abandon Shadow, ever. I would always make sure that he was...
I abandoned my son!
I just mean if the worst should happen.
What would make a good bet? Well, if I lose this, it'll probably find its way home. No harm, no foul.
It's a very cynical way of looking at my argument. We should all be so lucky to have a good boy like Shadow in our lives.
Yes.
Yes. So I would just want to make sure the audience at home knows that I would take very good care of Shadow.
Yes, yes.
The dog that played Shadow, long deceased.
Why do you keep saying that?
Had to be pointed out.
Way to bring the room down.
He was like 20-some years old.
Hey, remember that time you told me the Queen's Corgi died?
Oh, yes. I was like, speaking of corgis, the corgi died. Oh, yeah. I just delivered bad news in a real upbeat way.
Lady and the Tramp are cartoons. They're still cool
At least
dogs.
several more of those corgis have died by now, by the way. Just
Quite
point that
possibly.
out.
Dan, well played. Who's going to take the box office this weekend, by the way?
Good question. Look. I mean, the reviews on Dark Phoenix aren't great. The Secret Life of Pets 2 animation's a big summer movie, big strong play. So a lot of people are saying that the Pets Sorry, Lon, the Pets may rule the box office.
I like Pets. I'm the one who's in favor of not losing your pet.
They're cartoons. I'm not in favor of losing anyone's pet.
I'm going home. Daddy and Daddy need to stop fighting.
The straw man has been so strong from this side of the table today. No, it looks like the Pets will take the box office this weekend, but you never know. Comic book movies are very big this year. You never know, but it looks like Secret Life of Pets 2 might take the weekend.
Right on. Dan, thank you, sir. Well fought all day. Danielle, super delightful and a lot of great points. Love your Brian Tyree Henry argument, among others. Please, go ahead and shout out some stuff.
Oh, yeah, just do the things that you guys always do, which you've already done, Bassavand, which you've already followed me on Twitter. Thank you. You've already followed me on Instagram. Thank you. I will try to put up more posts. Again, trying to buy more dresses. I do. If you like wrestling, I've got my wrestling podcast, Tights and Fights, which I believe is an interview this week.
Is that AEW a real contender? Is it how much is it here to stay?
I have not seen Wrestle Twitter this excited about something new in a really long time, and I'm not going to get into this because I could literally talk about it for an hour, and I do every week on Tights and Fights.
Right on.
But this is one of those things where even if AEW isn't huge, competition only makes everyone else better.
Yeah.
It's never a bad thing to make WWE have to rise to the challenge.
Step their game up a little bit. Right on. Danielle, thank you so much. Lon, great stuff all the way along. You probably need like Smaug or something to guard the goose with the golden egg.
Sure.
Nah, the goose
Also not a great pet.
Your whole
A lot of space. Taking up a ton of space. He's got a real attitude.
A talking dragon, a mean goose.
Trust me, that goose guards itself. That goose don't need no guard.
They seem perfectly calm in the movie. I don't know, like maybe
Smaug?
real. No, the goose.
Oh.
No, Smaug's not calm. He's
No,
really.
no.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Anything else to shout out?
Follow me on Twitter at LONS, and please help control the pet population. Have your pets spayed and neutered.
Thank you, Bob Barker. Ken Knapsack, a rare treat to have you sitting over there holding it down. Thank you so much for coming in and recreating this gruesome twosome from TV Fights. Ken, please tell us about your awesome book.
Oh, yeah.
And where we can find you.
Thanks for having me, everyone here. Billy Biz, Max, Ryan, JT, the whole team. I've been a part of great movie fights for a long time, and I know things start to change, but it's great to be back home, and we can always have our memories, except for the ones I made with Billy. You can go to kenknapsack.com, get information on where to buy my book, Why We Love Star Wars, The Great Moments That Built the Galaxy Far, Far Away, and all the shows I do, including Casterly Talk with that man over there, Lon Harris, where we talk about Game of Thrones.
Heck yeah. Thank you, Ken Knapsack. Lovely stuff. Billy Biz!
Yo, this was a fun one. I really had fun. I'm looking forward to the rest of the month. Download Danielle's podcast, buy this guy's book, download the Casterly Talk podcast, watch Dan on the Schmodown, and then check out Power Levels after you do all that on the Screen Junkies channel.
Hell yeah. Thanks, Billy. I want to thank Billy. I want to thank JTE, Ken, everybody who fought today. And please follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Hal Rudnick. Lots of stupid stuff, thoughts on movies, TV, dumb characters. Just get in there and mix it up. Hoot, hoot, everybody. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Bye-bye.